Welcome to the Run Out. I am Neil Barrett. He is Brandon Hooten. We had an incredible final weekend of the regular season this weekend in Boston. The Cannons crashed out. The Chaos make the championship series for the first time ever, and the Archers get the number one pick the hard way. But before we get into all of that, Brandon, you weren't with us last week for reasons, and we don't whatever, but there was some news that we didn't get to talk about last week from the week prior. If you want to fill everyone in.
If you're referring to me getting hired by the PLL to shoot that is what I'm referring to. That did occur. It was cool. It was very positive, stressful is the way I would put it. Like it was it was a lot to do. It's kind of funny, like you know what happens if you're in it, but you don't actually see it happening. And so like to be on the other side of that and be like in the meetings and, you know, there's like things you hear that like you can't tell anybody obviously. And like that type of thing. So it was fun. It was cool just seeing like start to finish, like guys getting off the bus into, okay, we're doing warm ups. Now we're doing this and we're doing that. And, you know, kind of coordinating with everybody. So shout out to them and Nick Garati for giving me a chance. It was fun. I will at some point post those photos. I'm just kind of behind right now, so I'm just at some point they'll be posted up there. But
no, it's funny because the last episode you were on, you told me that it had happened, but we didn't want to talk about it at that point. But it was just funny to like, oh, I'm one of the only people that knows this. And then everyone was seeing you on TV and being like, wait, Brandon's on the sidelines? Yeah. Brandon was on TV a lot.
I think you were one of, like in the lacrosse space, I mean, one of, I think, 3 people that like knew that I told. And then out of nowhere in our group chat, Michael Harrison sent that photo after the Outlaws game winner. And he tagged me in it. And I was like, I don't even know how you know what I look like from that far away. But he did. So yeah, I didn't really put it out there because I was just kind of like just attending to my business. But yeah, I heard from a lot of people that I was on TV quite a bit. So that's
did you not want to jinx it? Was that it? Was that a thought process at all, or was it just like?
No, I don't like attention really. Like if that makes sense. It's oddly enough, I'm in an attention-based industry. I recognize that, but like I just was like, you know. It was one of those things like I'll talk about after the fact, like I'm doing now. Because it's at the end of the day, like I would have been there anyway doing it. It's just a matter of now my stuff is being seen on PLL socials. So that was cool. Like seeing in between games, like looking at Twitter and Instagram and, you know, being like, oh, that's my photo. And like, even like throughout the week when you see stuff that I'm like, oh, why didn't they post that? And then you start seeing posts later on come out and it's like, oh, okay, they were saving it for that. So
I believe cool. Kyle posted you had the one of Manny diving, right?
The one where he got killed by what's his name, Jack DiBenedetto.
Yeah, and unfortunately it's like this really cool photo of him like diving across the goal, but the ball is like behind him over here. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, he didn't score that.
He got lit off, dude. Yeah, it was that was one of those when I got it and I was like I'm so glad I was ready for that because he got just levitated off the ground and, you know, but.
Yeah, well, it looked cool and the photo looks cool, even if he didn't score. That would have made it like this much cooler, but it was still a really, really cool photo. Sounds like it was a really fun experience. And it was cool to see you like with the PLL, like, photographer vest on and everything, and
it like literally it was so okay. I'm gonna tell a story. I was so embarrassed. It was funny and happy at the same time. But so like the Rough Riders had this massive section, like I'm talking like the entire thing is them, and obviously like I know them all pretty well. And so the first day, I forget what I was doing. Like I was just like grabbing some last minute shots before the face off. And they start chanting my name, like just 5 of them. And I was like, haha, whatever, you know. Embarrassing, but whatever. The second day, even more people came because it's a Saturday. and I'm doing the same thing, but I'm like next to, I was covering the Atlas that morning. So like Rough Riders are right here. Atlas is right in front of them, just, snapping away. And all of a sudden, everyone at once just started chanting, be hoop, be hoop, be hoop. Like the entire, I was like, oh, please stop. Like, I wanted to just shrivel up and die. Like, I was like, this is so embarrassing right now. Of course, like all the players are like, what is happening? Like, I'm just trying to take photos. Like, but it was cool, but it was definitely like embarrassing at the same time.
All right, before we move on to Boston, though, we gotta ask, what was it like being there? Especially, I know you had to be a little bit more neutral than perhaps you would have been, but still an Outlaws fan, and seeing that incredible overtime winner, being there in Denver with that crowd, what was that like?
Oh, the crowd pop was insane. First off, for only having a stadium that only has one set of stands, like that, it was loud. It was awesome. But like the whole even overtime period before it happened, like seeing them go back and forth. I had a great view at one point of I don't know, maybe it was Jeff T or someone shot it like kind of going top shelf, top corner, and McNaney just stared it down, and like seeing that and then go the other way and then have Jared finish it like he did. It was one of those that like I was ready to run on the field. And so when it crossed, I was just like, that was insane. And I just booked it. And you just have like, I have a photo of Pat Cav getting crushed in this pile just of dudes jumping up, and like, yeah, it was crazy. The fans were great. It was also just, I think, cool that it happened the second day after the loss the first day for the fans to kind of have something to be excited about. And obviously then the players were excited to like sign autographs and stuff. So yeah, it was, after being in Utah the week prior, seeing their crowd, I was pretty pleased with how Denver showed out too.
Yeah, actually that's a really good transition into Boston. I was at the games in Boston this weekend, and we looked it up because my wife and I were sitting down in the top shelf club thing that's like on the field, and I just wondered what she thought, and I said, hey, how many people you think are up there in the stands right now? And she was like, oh, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 grand. And I got really curious because I didn't know off the top of my head, and that stadium at Harvard holds just over 30,000 people. And wow. I was like, okay, see, that changes things, because I mean, almost that one whole side, and there's 3 sides, and almost that whole side was full. And so you're like, man, that's probably closer to 10,000 people that are there. Yep. But the first night that I was there, I went alone because my wife works until about 7:30 or so is when she normally gets home. And the first game was at 6, an hour and a half away in Boston. So I went by myself, and I was sitting, our seats were actually like front row of the stadium, but kind of off into one of the corners. And I was sitting there watching, and I was like, I don't know what's going on, but something about this feels so high school to me. Like, it just feels like such a lower level than it did like when I was in Charlotte or when I've been to, the championship games or something. And I realized on that second day how much I think it was the fact that even though there's a pretty substantial crowd there, it doesn't feel like it as much. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. And I was like, oh man, it's so not funny, but like, it's so strange to come off of specifically Denver and Utah, and even a little bit Chicago the week before that, where you had these somewhat smaller venues that they were able to really like pack out compared to, a 30,000 seat stadium that while they're getting a pretty good crowd, more than Utah and Denver are getting, it just, even if only because they can fit more, Denver holds what, 2,000-ish, something like that?
2.5 or 3, something like that.
Something. And I think
Utah's around like 7 as well.
Oh, I thought it was like 4. But either way, it was just like, I feel like I'd rather have a 2 to 4 7,000 seat stadium that was completely packed and like feel that pulse than a 30,000 seat stadium that has 10,000 people in it. And the Boston crowd is great, and I think from the field you can really feel it, but it's a different thing when you're in the crowd and you can also feel it. So yeah, I've really wondered what your experience was, especially being like down on the field, which I know you normally are in Denver, because whether you're working for the PLL or not, you're usually shooting the game. So yeah, no, it was such a different kind of feeling. It felt like this weekend compared to especially the previous two, where those two crowds were just all in. But let's go a step farther and acknowledge that Boston is also all in on the Cannons. You know, we hear that thing every week online about home cities don't matter, and it's just such a funny comment to hear coming off of those last 3 weekends of the season, where clearly home teams matter and those people are invested in their team now, to the point where I almost think that, I don't even want to say almost, I think that it's kind of been a detriment to the PLL in a way, because when those home teams are not playing, the interest level in the stands goes down pretty significantly. Yeah. So,
which is expected. Anyway, it's, you know,
for sure.
There's nothing you can do about it, but you could definitely see, like, especially last week in Denver. I don't know how it was this weekend, but there was still probably 75% of the stands filled for that Redwoods game on Saturday night. But it was very clear, like, we're only here because we bought the homecoming pass, or,
right,
you know,
right.
Granted, I'll give them credit. There were a few fans that were very passionate chanting for the Woods and Whips. But it, like you're saying, it's one of those, it's just like home team's not playing.
Yeah. Well, and to be, again, completely honest, the previous method, before they had the home teams, you would still get the, you know, half of the crowd wouldn't necessarily care about the teams that were playing. It just was more kind of like spread out evenly, because there wasn't a home team. So you just kind of had your team and you cheered for them. And then when they weren't playing, you weren't as into the game necessarily. So it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of another. And I apologize if that's not an idiom that that people recognize. It's, I guess, a Southern one, I guess. I don't know. I
recognize it. So you're good, at least over here.
Okay, every time I say it up here, people look at me like, what are you talking about? I had to explain it to my wife, and she thought I was a lunatic even after I explained it to her. So
that's funny.
But yeah, no, it's funny. I said it once in a meeting at work, and everyone was like, what? And I had to be like, oh yeah, you guys don't know what that means. You guys have never heard. And everyone was like, no, we've never heard that before. So
that's funny.
Anyway, let's get into some of the games. Let's start with the Redwoods and Cannons game. The Cannons home team, unfortunately, did a lot to try and win this game, but did not win, ultimately losing 18-17 to the California Redwoods. That earned the Redwoods a spot in the playoffs, which I got to admit, coming into it, I wasn't sure they were going to do.
I don't think most, well, I won't say most. There's a fair crowd of Woods fans, but I think a lot of people probably were thinking that Boston would come out game one and, you know, they're playing in front of their home fan. They should win that game theoretically. But I mean, bad day to be a goalie. I'll tell you what. I mean, both goalies under 40%. You know, it just felt like both teams, they were in a rhythm, but they weren't at the same time. And it was just like anything they shot went in, and like defenses were just struggling from start to finish.
Yeah. I thought that was the main takeaway, I think, for me, was just how bad the two defenses are playing, at least right now. I think they at least should be capable of playing a lot better than they are, but they just they just are not playing well at all right now. And both goalies are just awful. You know, middle of the season, people were talking about which one is it? Colin. Dang it. I always get it wrong. Colin Kirst. They were talking about him being that next guy kind of behind Liam and Dauber. And the last few weeks, he's just been awful. And some of that's not on him. Some of that is his defense. There's not a whole lot he can do with some of these shots that are going in. But it's crazy when Chase Erlin is definitely heading into this game is going to be looked at as kind of the worst of the two goalies. And he finishes the game at 39%. And Colin Kirst was worse than him.
Yep. I mean, pretty much from Chicago weekend up to now, Boston's defense has left Kirst out to dry.
Yeah.
And like,
absolutely.
I was thinking about this week too. It is a fine line between like giving a goalie, you know, credit, for lack of a better term, of letting goals in versus saying, hey, his defense isn't helping him out. Because there is like a push and a pull of like, you need both to go together. Mm-hmm. But there's so many plays that like, even in this game where, I mean, I think the first goal of the game, like Chris Cav just wide open, like he's just in the ocean, just, you know, please shoot it at. And it's like, you're expecting your goalie to save a shot from 15 feet out when you don't even attempt to get a stick out there. And same thing was happening with California outside of Brian Tevlin. Like the rest of that defense, it just felt like it was like they were just playing offense the entire time. And in a game like for this, like for Boston, like they needed this one. I mean, so did California, obviously, but it's just like of all the times to let up 18 goals, like this wasn't the game to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that push pull that you talk about, that's what I call the Jack Concannon effect, because you remember Jack Concannon for the Atlas was just insane. I compare him a lot in my soccer brain to David De Gea, who used to play for Manchester United, and he was the best shot stopper I think I've ever seen. Like, just could save everything. And Jack Concannon, I used to always compare to him because I thought Jack Concannon could just save everything. But at some point, that defense in front of him was just so bad that it's like, yeah, I can save just about everything, except for when guys are just standing on the crease, just like dunking over me. Like, what am I supposed to do in that situation? And both of these goalies, I think, suffer a lot from maybe they aren't Jack Concannon in that they're just exceptional shot stoppers, but they're above average goalies when you have a half decent defense in front of them, and just neither of them are getting that level of support whatsoever.
Yeah.
The big, I guess, offensive story in this game was Chris Kavanaugh. Obviously, he had 6 points on 4 goals and 2 assists. We have talked about him sort of fading, I think, a little bit. One thing we should probably mention, we are going to not spend a lot of time talking about awards this week because we're going to do it all next week. But suffice it to say, many people have put him in the conversation after this game. And one of the reasons why I wanted to delay the conversation was so that we didn't have any kind of like emotional reactions to this one game, and we could actually kind of like process things and dig a little deeper and have like a more thoughtful and informed conversation about the season in its totality rather than this 6 points. However, it was a very impressive performance from Chris Kavanaugh, and you can't really take anything away from him. I'm wondering, again, we won't get into the Rookie of the Year conversation, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are on whether or not he was the steal of the draft. For those listening, he's thinking hard.
I don't know. It's hard to do that type of thing in this league specifically because each round is 8 picks. So it's like the chances of you, like in the NFL, there's many opportunities for you to really find a steal that you're like, wow, we overlooked this guy 32 times, 5 times that, you know what I'm saying? Whereas this is like, he was the 11th, 10th pick, something like that. Like it wasn't like he, no one knew what was going to happen with him, which is why I'm hesitant to say he's the steal. Because I think we all like kind of knew he would be serviceable. Did we think he was going to put up 37 points? Hand up, I did not. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, all right, I knew this whole time. But I don't know that I can label him like steal of the draft just because we knew kind of what we were getting. But I think he's like a very welcome surprise, especially in that offense, considering that coming into the season, I think we all kind of were like, they're going to be bottom 2 or 3.
Yep.
And not saying that you can't still make that argument, but like, hey, he fit in flawlessly with Malloy as well. So from that perspective on this team, I think you can make that argument.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you kind of across the board. I have often compared it to the NFL draft and been like, the entire PLL draft is the first round of the NFL draft. Like it's the same thing. So when you're really talking steal, it's like, I mean,
every pick should be a steal at that point.
Right. I feel like the guys like Jackson Eicher and Ethan Rawl a couple years ago, like those are the guys that are the real steals. And obviously they're not steals of the draft because they didn't get drafted, but they're like the steals of the draft class. To me, that's the thing. I always think that a steal has to be relative to the expectation. People said TJ Malone was the steal of the draft last year. And I was always like, that feels so crazy to me that person could be labeled the steal of the draft because the whole time that the draft is going on, we're like, why is nobody taking TJ Malone? Like he was a first round talent. Like it doesn't make any sense why he fell to the 3rd round. So,
but that was Sam King this year, I'd argue.
Yes, I would absolutely argue that the same thing with Sam King is like Sam King was a first round talent who for no reason, it's not like, people point to like Shador Sanders and stuff. And it's like, okay, I'm not saying I agree with it, but like I can understand the thought process of like, he comes with baggage or, maybe they didn't think he was quite as talented playing at Colorado and whatever. There's some logic there that I can sort of understand. Sam King, TJ Malone, these guys, they fall down the rankings for no reason whatsoever. Jackson Eicher, you could maybe make the argument of military service obligations have burned teams in the past, and so they didn't want to make the commitment to a guy that may not be able to play after 1 year. So I don't know. I really struggle with the idea that Chris Kavanaugh, any Kavanaugh for that matter, was a steal in the draft. I know people like to make the argument, well, it's about value. And I'm like, yeah, but you knew, like you said, maybe you didn't quite know he was going to be 37 points good, but you knew he was going to be a Kavanaugh. Like, come on.
Yep. I will say, I forgot to mention earlier, I got to meet him prior to Denver weekend. I did an event. Very nice. Him, Pat, Brendan, all very nice. Just throwing that
all
out there.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Did you, I'm assuming not, but did you, it would have been cool if you did, especially being the local kid, get to do the Broncos training camp thing with them?
No,
I'm assuming not.
Unfortunately, no. I was at my day job and I was eating my lunch and I was like, "What is this?" And there they all are, just at Broncos camp. I was like, "Oh, that's nice. That's nice."
I'm right here.
I should have asked. I should have been like, "Can I tag along?" But yeah.
Jeez. Also worth noting, Asher Nolting's 4 points in this game. I'll talk more about him after we talk about the second game. But as much as we say he struggled at the beginning of the season, he really kind of turned into the Asher that we have known, especially in this second half of the season. And again, like I said, I'll talk about him more, but I did want to point out that he had 4 points in this game. And like you said, the Cannon scored 17 points. You would expect that would be enough to win any lacrosse game.
Yep.
And yet it wasn't. So
insane. That's twice they've lost a game like that, by the way. Same score in 3 weeks, I think it was.
Yes. I think, yeah. So just a crazy thing. Let's move on to the Friday night game. With the Redwoods win, the Archers were already officially out of the playoffs, but would secure the number 1 pick with a loss in this game, which of course in this league means that they won the game, outscoring the Chaos 4-1 in the fourth quarter to come from behind and win 11-10. This game, oh man, I'm not a Chaos fan, but I am from North Carolina, so there is a little bit of, there's a small piece of my heart that goes to them, and it was just like, it just felt like they were on cruise control and they were just going to like cruise to this win. The Archers looked like they have looked more or less all season, kind of inept, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, we can play, and the Chaos just forgot. We want to talk about hockey teams. This was a hockey team performance right here.
I mean, they really only played 2 good quarters, if I'm being honest. They didn't even play the third. Like, I thought they would have played harder just for standings and like point differential there, but for whatever reason, the Archers decided that they, at the time, did not want the number 1 pick and just were playing like for pride, I guess. It was just like, at some point, I was just like, are they really trying right now? Like, you could just take your foot off the gas for like 2 minutes of this game and get that number 1 pick, lose by 1, whatever it is. But I applaud them for playing it hard the entire way. But I mean, they didn't even dress as face-off artists for this game. They had Bo Pedersen take 9 of them at least. Mac O'Keefe, I thought finally a Mac O'Keefe game.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. I felt like Connor Fields only had 2 points, but I felt like he looked better overall.
Absolutely.
It was, don't get me wrong, I love seeing Sam King play well, but it was such a delightful sight to not have to have him take over the game and, go win the game for them. So that was cool.
It's one thing when you see like the Carolina Chaos rookies, because those guys have to be the guys that take over games and win. But in this offense, Sam King should not be the guy that's having to win you game after game after game after game. It's one thing, again, you go to like the Outlaws and it's like, okay, they've shut down Brennan, they've shut down Pat. So like, yeah, JB10's got to step up or Wiz has got to step up or something. Like that's one thing. But it's with this roster, it should not be Sam King that's winning game after game after game for you. I agree with you. I couldn't believe that it took to the last game of the season to get Mac O'Keefe going, to get Connor looking, like you said, it was only 2 points, but he looked like he was actively engaged. It reminded me a lot of the Brennan game against the Archers that we've talked about several times, where he just kind of kept going at Graham Hossack, where he would kind of recede and pull out. It reminded me of that, where Connor Fields clearly wasn't scoring a whole lot, but he was causing havoc just by like continuing to dodge hard, draw slides, and move the ball. So yeah, I just can't believe it took until the end of the year to get that kind of a performance out of them. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, and no Schreiber as well. I believe Grant Ament left the game as well, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right, but I was there, so I didn't hear I didn't have a commentator telling me, but I believe that you're right.
I think that occurred. So I was still like, nice job winning the game without those two. But I'm hoping that this offseason can kind of reset them, just whether it's in Utah or not. But, just top to bottom this year was rough for them. I think the bright spots in this game were both goalies getting 50+%, Brett Dobson 60%. And then obviously Shane Knobloch and Jackson Eicher with 4 points each as well. Josh Zawada, I also think has been sneaky good this year that no one's really talked about. Not that he's like a star yet. I'm just saying I think he's better than people give him credit for.
I'm pushing back on that for this reason. I think he was great in this game. I think this was the first time that I felt like he played really well. Ignoring points, he's probably had a couple of 3-point games this season or whatever. This was the first time that I watched him and felt like he was actually in tune with the guys that he was playing with. He was playing well. He was dodging hard with his head up and stuff. One of my bigger frustrations with him, especially with the Outlaws last year, but it has carried over, I think, a bit into this, is how often he just doesn't look at anyone. I don't want to say he dodges with his head down, because I think that leaves the image that he's literally like this, which I don't think he does that. But he just doesn't even see the whole other side of the field half the time and stuff. But this game, I thought he looked every bit of as good as he can be. I will also admit that I have a little bit of bias because I got really frustrated watching him play at Duke and do that. Yep. and just not even look to the other side of the field. He would just get the ball and dodge straight to the side it came from, and he wouldn't even see this side of the field. And anyway, trauma, trauma flashback right there. To your point though, yes, I think Shane Knobloch looked great, and Jackson Eicher has been that dude. As much as Owen Hiltz gets the headlines, I think Jackson Eicher has been just as important for this Chaos team. And to that point, Owen Hiltz only had 1 point in this game. If he can find a goal in this game, because he just had the one assist, if he can find a goal in this game, they probably win it, But it felt like maybe everyone was like, okay, we got to shut down Owen Hiltz. Yep. And they were able to, presumably Graham Hossack. It's funny how when you're there, how much harder it is to keep track of matchups and everything. I don't know why exactly that is. Maybe it's because you don't get replays and no one's in your ear, telling stuff, but it's so much harder to track matchups and everything. But I'm assuming it's because Graham Hossack was put on him and just kind of shut him down by and large part. But Jackson Eicher stepped up as he has all season, and I talked about it the last time you were on. I don't think he's going to win it, not by a long shot. In fact, if he's the fifth person in the finalists, he's probably number 5. But I think he's been good enough to be a finalist. Whether he will be or not, we'll see. But yeah, so that's kind of crazy. With this result, though, it left both teams up in the air. The Archers had to wait to find out if they would end up getting the number 1 pick, and the Chaos had to wait and see if they would make the championship series. They had already locked up a playoff spot, but they were trying to see if they were going to finish top 4. So the win would have secured them top 4, and the loss would have secured the number 1 pick, but unfortunately went the other way, and so they had to wait for other results. Moving on to Saturday, the Atlas beat the Water Dogs in the highest scoring game in PLL history, 20-19. There were highlights galore in this game. This was
got kind of boring at a certain point. Can't lie. I was waiting for one defensive stop, just one.
Yep. Yeah, we want to talk about bad defenses. This was a mess, and part of it is these are very good offenses, but my goodness, I'm with you. I don't mind it as much sometimes, but this felt like it was almost like a sixes game, like just up and down the field, no real defense to speak of. And it worries me for this Atlas team that I think give or take a goal with the Outlaws are one of the top two, if not the best team in the league. It worries me that this defense consistently plays like this. They're just all over the place all the time.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it probably doesn't help that this is the second game of the weekend that was very high scoring like this. You know, both goalies in this game, again, also under 40%. So it just kind of got to a point where it was like, someone's got to stop someone. And it never happened. And then by the time we got to the end, they were like, oh, the Water Dogs can just like back off because they just need to lose by 2 or less. And I was like, okay, like we just like duked it out for 48 minutes just to have this ending of just like, yeah, you guys just hold the ball over there. Like, I was just like, this is, you know, and it's funny too, because like Trevor dominated the stripe. Like Stathakis, this was, I don't have his numbers. I think this had to have been his worst game of the season. And the Water Dogs still found a way to be within a goal. So credit to them for at least continuing to fight, because there was a point where I was just like, Dylan Ward's just getting beat on everything. Even the ones that I would say his defense was the reason for, like they're scoring at will. It didn't really matter what happened. And I mean, Shelley had another 7 points. Jeff T had 4 points. Costabile was crazy. Dixon, Reed Bowering all of a sudden is like this incredible. I mean, people that watch the NLL know Reed Bowering, but like most field people, I would argue, don't know a ton about him. And he's been really good the last couple of weeks. And then Trevor obviously has 3 points too. Like,
yeah,
everyone on the roster, I felt like, was scoring.
Yeah. To answer your question, this was Stathakis' worst game by, I'd say, a considerable margin. Yeah, his previous worst game was 40%. It was game 1 against Joe Nardella and the Whipsnakes, and he finished at 29% in this game. So,
yeah,
a pretty decent margin. It was his worst game. But you look at the Water Dogs and you think, if we said, hey, the Water Dogs are going to score 19 points and they're going to have Liam Intamin under 40%, you'd be like, hey, we win that game.
Yep.
And yet Dylan Ward was worse. And I still think that the introduction of CJ into this offense, as good as he was, and he was great in this game, I still think the introduction of CJ into this offense has completely shot it. They have lost all 4 games since CJ was added to this roster. And I don't think it does not appear in any way that's going to change in the quarterfinals the week after next. Like, I just don't know how that's going to change unless they get on the field and they get to practice this coming weekend, which I don't think they do. I think because it's a bye, there's nobody meeting. I just don't see how they're going to correct that. And it goes back to what we've been talking about all year of how much of a disruption is bringing CJ into this offense. And again, it's not about him. Clearly, he's playing great. He had 6 points. But
back-to-back games.
Yes, but how does that disrupt everyone else on that offense?
I mean, I think it's mostly fine. I think it's hard when you were expecting Jake Taylor to kind of still be there, and he's the guy that gets bumped for it. I personally thought they were going to take another midi out and put Jake in this week. So then when he wasn't on the roster, I was like, this is kind of weird. And it's hard because, like you're saying, he's personally performing very well. So you can't then be like, sorry, you got to go sit at the bench now because
right.
He put up 6 points. But and even like McCardle 5 points, Sowers 3, Connor Kelly 4. But it's just like, this is the one game that they put it all together and all play really well offensively. is the game that they lose, a high scoring affair. So like you're saying, especially because now it's one and done, like you need to win the next game. Do you pull him out now and you're like, go run midi or something? I just don't know where you go from here if you're Bill Tierney, essentially.
No, I don't. I feel like I know Connor Kelly had 4 points in this game, but to be fair, he had 1 2-point goal. So, I feel like it's completely disrupted their midfield for whatever reason. That attack line I felt was so balanced with Sowers, McCardle, and Taylor, and adding CJ into that mix and like disrupting that offense that attack line has just completely disrupted that offense. And the midfield is where they've like suffered the worst. So like, sure, CJ's getting 6 and Kieran had 5, but like the midfield just isn't performing. Jack Hanna has been relatively quiet over the last few weeks. And I feel like he's so important to what they do on that offense. When he's clicking, that offense is just beautiful to watch. So I don't know. It's harsh to say because it's not CJ's fault, but also it feels like this thing could have been managed better. And this is where I think management of players and schemes and stuff comes into play. So it'll be fine. They'll figure it out probably down the stretch, probably next year.
Gonna have to.
And so that leads to 2 personnel questions. I'll hit the bigger one first. Well, I guess it kind of depends on how you define bigger. How are you handling this team right now? If they go on a run and win the championship, we might have a different conversation at the end of the season. Right now, how are you handling this attack line with their 5 attackmen? With Zed, Kieran, Michael Sowers, Jake Taylor, and CJ Kirst. How are you handling that next year?
Well, I said over the weekend, I don't know. I know I said it to Kyle. I don't know who else I said it to. I don't think Zed's a water dog next year. Personally, I think he's traded. I said that early on when he was traded that I didn't think he'd ever stood up for them. I think had he not torn his Achilles this year, he may have. But then it's like, I just think now they're kind of in like a youth kind of. I think they're one vet. When I say vet, I recognize Sowers has been in there a few years now, but I think their one vet is McCardle. Just because I think his chemistry's already there. Like, there's no point in being like, hey, sorry. And then bringing in Zed, who's never played and is coming off an injury. And so I think, honestly, Zed's probably gone. And I think it's still Kirst, McCardle, Sowers is their starting. And then I think I think Jake's gonna end up running out of the box. Okay. If I'm being honest. Or if they say, hey, Jake's not the best running out of the box, maybe they say, hey, Kirst, you're running out of the box now. And then obviously you can invert whenever you want. But I just personally have a hunch that Zed won't be a water dog.
I mean, I've said on the show before, that logic, I can't poke holes in it. I don't necessarily agree, but I can't fault the logic behind it. You know, my thing is, I think Kieran McCardle gets squeezed out, not because of his play. Obviously, he has been incredible, and I think he is one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated player in the league. People just do not give him credit for how good he has been. The fact that he's never been a PLL All-Star is ridiculous, and that needs to change next year. I mean, I'll say that, and then he'll have like 3 points by the All-Star break, and it'll be like, yeah, he shouldn't be in it. But if he's anything like he normally is, we need to make sure that he's an All-Star next year. It's ridiculous that he hasn't been an All-Star. He's that good, and I think he is one of the most underrated. Ooh, almost said overrated. Most underrated players in PLL history. However, when I look at this attack line, I think that him and CJ's skill set is almost on a Venn diagram of overlapping. I don't know how to do this right here. Overlapping skill sets. It's almost a perfect circle. Like they do so much of the same things, and you're obviously going to take the younger model unless the disparity between them was so large that you keep the older model, but otherwise, and I don't think it is in this situation. So I think you move on to the future of your program. You're not going to sit CJ for 3 years while you play out Kieran McCardle's career. So in when I look at this roster, those two guys overlap so much. Nobody else does what Michael Sowers does. Nobody else does what Zed can do. Nobody else does what Zed does, what Jake Taylor does in and around the crease as an inside finisher. Not that they can't do some of those things, but just like as the total package of who they are as a player, they all are so different. And at least I would want that. And I think it has worked well for the Water Dogs already this season. Like we said, the first, whatever it was, 6 or 7 games of the season when it was Kieran McCardle, Michael Sowers, and Jake Taylor, it worked so well. And I think it's because they have such a good balance and they all kind of fill the spaces of what the other players kind of lack. So the issue is, I don't know. I'm not saying anything. I don't know that he's gone or anything, but there are questions about whether Bill Tierney will be back. Maybe not huge shouts. And the PLL is also a league that doesn't love to fire coaches. Not that they haven't, but they don't do it often. Also, you're going to fire Bill Tierney. I don't know, but I don't know. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. But again, I don't have any issue with anything you said. I do. Just real quick before I go into my second question. Where do you see Zed? If you don't see him with the Water Dogs, where do you see Zed?
I have no idea. Just not Philly.
Not Philly. Anywhere but. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I mean,
the quick answer every time is Carolina.
It's Carolina.
Every single player this year, it's been, who's going to go to? Carolina.
Well, and to that point, it doesn't look like they're picking up. Doesn't look like they're going to get Joey Spallina with that number 1 pick. No. So they're going to have some holes.
I'll throw like a hot take one just to get people talking. Maybe Utah, because of the rumors we've heard about their roster shakeup that could potentially be pretty drastic from what I've heard. I have no inside sources, so that could all be fake, obviously. But I could totally see them going down a route of like, we were bad this year. We're getting a little older. Tom's been injured every year now, back-to-back years. I mean, do we shake it up and just go young and bring in a big body like Zed where he can take his time to work back? Because, I mean, assuming Malloy and Chris Cat are back, he's not going to Cali. Denver's set. New York is set. He just got traded from Maryland, so that's a no. If he leaves Philly, that's a no. So to me, it's really going to be Carolina or Utah.
And actually, like when you first said Utah, I was like, "Oh, that is a take." But the more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I mean the rumors are, again, not from any inside sources, but the rumors are that Connor Fields may be moving on, that Mac O'Keefe may be moving on. And you start looking and it's like, no, they could very well have some holes that a Zed Williams could really fill well. So like I said, what you said Utah, and I was like, oh, I don't know. But the more I think about it, it's like, no, okay, that's actually not as wild of a take as it sounds when you first hear it. So
I can see it.
All right.
I could see it. I would hate it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I think I'd prefer to see him on Carolina if he leaves. I want to see him in Philly. If it was up to me, I want to see him there. But I think that's separate from what I think will occur. And for that reason, I think he probably ends up in one of those spots.
Okay. Let's move to the last question here so we can get into some of the other games. But the big question coming into this game was Dylan Ward or Matt DeLuca. We had talked briefly about that several weeks ago. I was of the opinion that Dylan Ward, for all of his faults in goal in terms of keeping the ball out of the net, he was winning games, and you can't fault him for that. And they needed a win. And Matt DeLuca, for all the good he was doing keeping the ball out of the back of the net, he wasn't winning games. As you have said many times this season, all streaks must come to an end, and that streak came to an end this week. So, you're looking at the quarterfinal game in 2 weeks against Maryland, right? Maryland?
Yeah.
Maryland. Against the Whipsnakes. Who are you putting in goal? He's doing some last minute research.
Well, I was checking to see Dylan Ward hasn't played the Whips yet. I'm sticking with Dylan at this point. Because he's 3-1 when he starts and finishes a game. I think, we've mentioned this a couple times, I just think he commands the defense as it currently stands a little bit better than DeLuca does. And that's not because DeLuca's a bad goalie. I just think he needs more time. Like, he just needs more experience. But we're kind of at a point in the season where, like, Wardle's played more recently of, like, I guess he's really only played the one game recently because I think DeLuca played the game before. So this kind of refutes my point. But I just feel like they're going to react better. And if he comes out and plays poorly, then guess what? You have DeLuca right there. You can pull him, and then DeLuca goes in the game. But either way, like, they have a lot of defensive problems that it doesn't really matter who you put in goal. If your defense doesn't slide, if your defense doesn't communicate, it doesn't matter. So, But I also mentioned early on a few weeks ago that maybe they continue to alternate, and then once playoff time comes, they say, hey, DeLuca, you're the guy. We just want to keep you fresh, which would make sense because now he has 2 weeks to get ready for that since Dylan Ward played this game. So really, it was 3 weeks. So I don't know.
So to your point, Matt DeLuca played both games against the Whipsnakes. He went 63% in the first game, and the Water Dogs won. He went 64% in the second game, and the Water Dogs lost. So, I don't know that helps make a decision one way or the other.
No.
I have been on the Start Ward train all year. Like I said, I think there's more to being a goalie than keeping the ball out of the net. And I think that defense does play, usually, this Atlas game aside, I think they do usually play better for him than for Matt DeLuca for whatever reason. However, I think now that streak is kind of ended and he's lost that game, I think, and I'm not going against anyone who says otherwise, but I think I would now lean more towards playing the guy that's better in goal, especially in a playoff game. I think you're going to need someone that can keep the ball out of the back of the net. And I don't know, that as I'm talking about it, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you need a defense that's organized. The defense wins championships, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I don't know how you make this decision. It's such a crazy thing. Like on every other team in the league, in every other year of this league, the guy who had the better save percentage was the guy that was winning more games. So like I just don't even have like a frame of reference for this game.
Yeah.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. All right. I think, you know what? You said Dylan Ward. I'll go Matt DeLuca just to be contrarian, I guess.
All right.
Let's
Dylan Ward
move
legacy
on
game
to,
incoming.
I know, right? Like the people online don't think I hate Dylan Ward enough. Come on. Jeez.
Yeah, you did that to yourself. I'll stay out of that one.
I didn't do not a damn thing, and you know it. Anyway, moving on to the last game of the weekend. This was a win and in game. Whoever won the game would make the playoffs, and the loser's season would be over. It was also, we focused a lot on the win and in for both of these teams, but it was also a win-win game for the Whipsnakes due to the Archers winning the game against the Chaos the night before. The Whips would not only make the playoffs if they won, but if they lost, they would steal the number 1 pick from the Archers. So it was a win-win game for the Whips. The Cannons needed to win it due to losing their first game of the homecoming. The Cannons needed to win it in order to make the playoffs, and they did not. They lost 15-8, which is mind-blowing because this was a 7-7 halftime game, and then they got beat 8-1 in the second half and lost 15-8 and crashed out of the playoffs, which is crazy to me. I don't know. I can't believe they had 2 chances. All they had to do was win 1 game this weekend and they would make the playoffs, and they went 0-2 and just completely crashed out. The fun thing at the beginning of this game was the running joke that nobody wanted Joey Spallina. Both teams that had chances to lose and grasp the number 1 pick both won. Nobody wanted to draft Joey Spallina. So that was interesting, but I don't know. I guess let's get into it. I felt so bad for that Boston crowd. They were so up for this game. They were so ready. They were so energized and loud, and it was fun to be there. And then the second half just killed it. They were so dead.
But that's a problem that Boston's had, I feel like, all year. It's a 2-half game. You can't just play 1 half and then expect to win. Even in Chicago, I remember saying they were down 11-3 in the first half. I'm like, you can't be horrendous in a half. You can have a down half versus, there's ebbs and flows to a game, but like to go from being tied 7-7 and you have momentum on your side essentially because you have the home crowd to then giving up 8 goals to your 1 in the second half. Like you just can't win games like that. And I mean, they legitimately let every single Whipsnake go off. I mean, they let Rob Pennell get 4 points in this game. Both Carrolls played out of their minds. Nardella again dominant at the stripe. Boston. It's so funny because Boston was 3-1. We're talking about them being arguably the best team in the league roster wise and all this stuff. Even when they were losing, when they were 3-3, I think I still said I still believe in them. And then throughout the year, it just kind of went down. Where it's just like it didn't matter what roster. It didn't matter if it was Coulter in there, if it was Whale, if it was both, if they were changing things defensively. Like nothing worked. And this was a prime example of just like you have this opportunity on a silver platter. Like, hey, just win this 1 game against a team who I think most would agree are in the bottom half of the league team wise, and you get almost doubled up. And not only did you get doubled up, but you let Maryland look really good every single quarter. It wasn't like they had one big quarter that won them the game. Every single quarter, they put up 3 or more goals.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to have to come up with a term. A hockey team is a team that only plays three quarters. What's a team that only plays one half?
A college basketball team. Men's college basketball team. Get them in March Madness.
Yeah, because this game was rough, and we talked about it in several of the other games. You know, you get 5 points out of Asher Nolting. You expect, okay, we're gonna put up. I'm not gonna say that 5 points from Asher Nolting wins you a game, but if he's got 5 points, the rest of that offense is clicking. No. Matt Campbell is the only other player that even had 2 points. Like, that's insane with that roster and the guys that they have on that roster and the amount of points that they can put up for Asher Nolting to have 5 points and for one other player to even have 2 is insane. And it's not like as good as Emmett Carroll played. It's not like that defense was just shutting everybody down. This is not the Archers defense. Like, they're not that good. The Cannons only had 13 turnovers the whole game. Like, they just weren't good.
Yep. And it's back-to-back weeks now that they've scored 0 points in the fourth quarter. Of all the quarters to lay a goose egg, the fourth is not the time to do it.
Yeah.
And like they're one of those teams that, like, on paper, like, they should have championships with an S.
Mm-hmm.
And
with an S.
This happens, and I'm just like, what is happening right now?
To be fair, they do have championships with an S.
I'm sorry. They should have PLL championships, not including Champ Series. We're not throwing that in there.
I mean, it is a PLL championship.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. We do got to figure out some way to, like, I don't know, like, what is the value of the championship? Like, it's cool, it's great. The championship series is always so much fun, to the point where we were talking about it in the group chat before we got on here. I want to know where they're hosting it so that I can already start, like, looking at hotels and flights and stuff, but they just haven't announced it. So, like, it's this great fun thing, but also it's the Cannons aside, because the Cannons generally do get a good amount of their PLL regular season players. You know, them aside, it's mostly not your big name guys. It's sixes, obviously, which is a completely different game, to the point where Jim Stagnita, we're talking about a Whips game, they've never won a game. He hates sixes. Did they end up making it? I'm totally blanking off the top of my head. Did they make it?
Yes, they did. No.
Are they? I can't remember.
No, they did not. It's okay. Denver, New York, California, Carolina.
That's right.
So good for Stags, making the playoffs and not making Champ Series. He's probably in heaven right now.
I feel like they might have sandbagged some earlier this season, because he was like, I am not doing the championship series again. All we got to do is make it into the playoffs, and that's all we need. Then we can win the championship from 6th place and not have to worry about the championship series. He is ecstatic right now.
Yep. But no, to answer your question, I don't really put too much stock in Champ Series trophies. Because you play the season, an entire season, to win the championship. That means it's the highest trophy you can earn. So to me, like, don't get me wrong, like, if you're playing Champ Series, play to win. Like, I'm not saying to, like, mess around and, like, whatever. Like, play to win if you're going. But, like, the people that put that as, like, oh, well, look at their trophy case and look at, it's like, really, that's not even the same echelon as what these teams are about to play for here in a month. Like, it's a cool thing that, like, gets sixes in front of people. It's extra lacrosse. It's extra paychecks for everyone involved. It's a very cool event. I'm not hating on the event. But as far as people putting, like, the utmost value on it. I'm like, it's not the same at all.
How do you feel about the championship banners that they had for the championship series?
That's fine. Like it's still a PLL event, right? And that's one that's like, at least it's separate to where like, hey, you still have to be of the top of the league. Problem I have is it's 8 teams. You just have to beat out 3 other teams and not including yourself. So 4 teams to get there anyway. So it's kind of like, now I will say the one banner that's separate from the championship that I absolutely despise is the NBA in-season tournament banners. That is ridiculous. There's no reason to have that. You did not win anything. Okay. You want to make up a fake tournament in the middle of the year. That's ridiculous. As far as Champ Series, at least it's separate and it's like a thing that's, hey, it's just between you 4. I don't think it should be the same size as a normal championship banner, but I have no problem with them having it.
See, I come from soccer and like in-season tournament, like Manchester United, the season's about to start. I think it's this weekend actually. And they will be competing in 4. They won't be competing in 4 this year. Generally, they are competing in about 4 competitions simultaneously throughout the season.
Yeah.
So the in-season thing, I don't know. The in-season thing doesn't bother me, but I also get that it's a little weird in American sports because like it's just not really a thing that we do, and they invented it last minute. Most of those like big European soccer competitions have been around for 100 years. So
it just putting that type of value on those types of things. In my mind, I feel like it almost is like diminishing of the actual thing that like we're all playing for. And like if you win Champ Series, you should be excited, but it should not be at the same level as when you're winning the PLL championship. Because you're getting together, it's like getting together with your boys for 1 week and you're just like all playing in a sixes tournament. Like, let's have some fun. Hopefully we win. It should not be like look, we're champions. Because what happened did you win the actual one, or is this just like a makeup type of thing? You know what I mean? So like, if anyone ever says to me like, well, but they won Champ Series, I don't really care. Half the teams, like you said, aren't even their team. Like,
that
we're picking
I think
up
is
random dudes that are fighting for a real spot on the roster. It's just, I don't know.
That I think is the hard part. I don't know that anyone realistically thinks it's comparable to winning the PLL championship in September, but I think the real issue is it would be one thing if the Boston Cannons, well, and again, they're not the best example because they do largely take their whole team, but the Chrome, when they won that year 1, I looked at that roster this year and there were like 4 today I looked at that roster for something on that we were having a discussion about, and there were like 4 dudes I had never even heard of. I didn't remember that they played in the championship series for Chrome. And then there were like 6 other guys on their roster that don't play for them.
Yeah.
Anymore. Like it was just,
and
I don't know. It was
probably won't ever play in, the real season. Like it's a good tryout period. And it's, to me, like if I'm a player, I'm treating it like, hey, this winning feeling's nice. Let's go into the rest of the off season and then into the season, like ready to go so we can win the real one.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just anything.
But I do think it is, generally speaking, a little bit harder for like the American sports mind as a whole to not have the opinion that you were just talking about like the only thing that really matters is the PLL championship. And again, I'm not saying that the championship series is on that level, but it is different, I think, coming from like a European soccer mind of there are 3 or 4 things that are equally important, may not quite be right, but are of kind of like upper echelon importance. I think winning your domestic league is probably number 1. And then it's weird because then they have like the European Continental Championship, and it's like in some respects, the European Continental Championship is the bigger deal, but in some respects, the domestic league. But then you also have like league cups, and there are other things. The FA Cup is like the oldest open cup it's like almost 150 years old, I think it is. So like there's a lot of prestige in that, and obviously the championship series only has, we're heading into its 4th season, so but again, it's a totally different thing because those teams you play for, if you're a Manchester United like starting 11 player, you're playing in all 4 of those. It's not, so maybe someday we'll get to a point where the New York Atlas are going to take their dominant, can you imagine Jeff Teach showing up for the Sixes tournament? Like,
yeah,
it would go crazy. But back to the game that we were talking about. The thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was Asher Nolting, and I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure people that are listening have seen the hate for Asher Nolting this season, especially around the decision with Pat Kavanaugh, which I always go back to. First of all, the discussion itself is stupid because Pat Kavanaugh asked for the trade. He's not some martyr. He didn't get sacrificed. That Brian Holman didn't even choose, quote unquote, Asher over Pat Kavanaugh. Pat Kavanaugh asked for the trade. So the conversation from the jump, I think, is stupid. But there was specifically the comment this week about the person that was like, oh, they really chose Fat Albert over Pat Kavanaugh, which, first of all, let's not talk about, but let's address the racial undertones of calling Asher Nolting Fat Albert. But more importantly, again, I don't think that those two things are connected, number one, but also Asher Nolting has one less point than Pat Kavanaugh, despite being on a significantly worse team. Significantly worse. He also had more points in this game that we're talking about here than Pat Kavanaugh had all of last weekend in Denver. Pat Kavanaugh had 3 points last weekend. Asher in this game had 5. In the game Friday night, he had 4 for 9 on the weekend. So I don't know. I just find this whole conversation so ridiculous about like what is it that Pat Kavanaugh would be doing on this Boston Cannons team that Asher Nolting isn't? He's already playing with one of the best rosters in the league, and he only has 1 point more than Asher. So like what is it what is this brain rot that is infecting the lacrosse community and it's not everyone. It's probably not even a majority of one. It's just this vocal minority that just drives me crazy. Like I don't get it. And I will admit I got a little bit of Asher bias in the same way that you have
bias.
Also probably, but I don't think this conversation is really about Pat Kavanaugh, other than the fact that people keep being like, oh, they should have taken Pat Kavanaugh. And it's like,
well,
why?
even if people think that, like, that's fine. Like you could always say like, hey, I prefer this over that. But there's also no guarantee that what he's doing this year he would do there. Is there an argument out there that would be like, hey, they have a worse roster, maybe he has more points because he has to do more? Sure. He also could have less points because he's not, he's dealing with the number one every single time, or what have you. So like the idea that like this is better than this when we haven't even seen it, like I'm not going to spend time arguing about it, which is what gets to me is like all these people get online and they start arguing about it, about a true hypothetical that's like, I can't believe we did this over that. And it's like, but it's not a guarantee that what you want would have worked out anyway. And Asher, to his credit, has reinvented himself in my mind with the way that he's playing, to where if you're going to let him score, he will score. But if you're going to shut that off, he's just going to dish the ball at a high rate, by the way. And like, don't get me wrong, there's a few guys ahead of him in the MVP talks, but like in any other year, he'd be talked about as an MVP. So those couple of people on Twitter that like consistently just need to bring that up, I'm just like, doesn't even matter. Like, it's not like Boston's losing because of him. Yeah. Boston's losing because their defense can't stop anybody. They're losing because Colin Kurtz had a down year. They're losing because they can't win at the stripe. Like, every other phase of the game for them has been bad. So to then talk about their star attackman is it's just so stupid.
The guy who's 6th in the league in points, he's the problem. Yeah.
Like, is he supposed to go play defense and then also play goalie and then run back and score? I just don't understand what they want him to do. Like,
don't forget facing off.
Oh yeah, he needs to start in the middle of the field. Hopefully win, go score. You know, it's just a Braveheart game. It's just people that choose to argue just to argue sometimes. And I'm like, if you want to have a discussion about who you think should have been kept by Boston, that's one thing. I will listen to those all day, every day. But like, who cares? They're out of the playoffs, on to next year. Like, deal with it.
Well, you and I talked several weeks ago, like, this was the perfect move for both teams. Like, I think that's the reason why when Pat Kavanaugh came and was like, hey, trade me, I think Brian Holman didn't fight it. He was like, okay, yeah, like this is going to work for all parties involved. Pat Kavanaugh got to a position where he could be maybe not the guy, but he could be the ball carrier for sure, which I think suits his game better. The Outlaws were able to get a guy that could be a ball carrier for them. Asher got more responsibility put on him, I guess is a good way to put it, which is better for him. They were able to bring in Will Manny and Coulter Mackesy and guys who truly occupy that side of the field, whereas Pat Kavanaugh was always kind of an outsider on that side of the field. Yep. And you know, he was playing out of position because he wasn't going to take Marcus Holman's position, and clearly he wasn't going to take Asher Nolting's position. So he was kind of being played out of position over there. But also, if you kept him, like, well, even if you wanted to keep him and make him that main guy, now you got to play Asher out of position, or you got to play Marcus out of position, which just doesn't work. Like, it was the perfect scenario for all parties involved, and it has worked that way for all parties involved. It's not like, oh, how stupid could they have been? They've gotten drastically worse. Like you said, they're not winning because of Asher Nolting. He's still one of the best attackmen in this league. He's still playing that way. Mm-hmm. They can't do anything else. Right.
And honestly, all those people online need to also understand that, like, the league is so small that when you're in a draft, a lot of times you just have to take the best player. You don't necessarily, like, you don't have the time to sit there and be like, well, we need this, so let's take that. Because then if you don't take Pat, like, taking Pat allowed them to get something back in return for the trade. If they don't take him, maybe they fill a hole over here. But now where does Pat end up? And is he dicing them up in the Eastern Conference now? Like, those are things that you have to think about. Like, it's not like Brian Holman. Even if Brian Holman chose to trade Pat Cav, it's not like he was like had some master like plan of, oh, I need Asher over Pat. It's just like Pat was the best player available at the time. They took the best player. They realized that, hey, this is best for the player and the organization to split amicably, and that's what occurred. And then the guy that everyone hates is still playing well. So, and like, it's so funny because I go back and I look at some of those guys' pages, and I'm like, not a single mention of the goaltending, not a single mention of the defense, like nothing. It's always that. They find one thing and they attack it over and over. And I'm like, why don't you talk about the face-off stripe? They didn't even go 50% in this game. But somehow it's Asher's fault. And somehow it's Brian Holman's fault. Like,
also, not for nothing, like you said, this could have gone very much the other way if they did keep him. Like, are you seriously going to take the guy who's been like a 3-year running Attackman of the Year finalist over the rookie who had 12 points? Like, nobody would make that choice. If they were forced to make that decision, nobody is picking Pat Kavanaugh.
Yep.
They're just not.
There would have to be like a big injury concern or something with Asher, or a character issue or something for you to even consider that. And there's not. Like he's a good dude. He's healthy from what I have seen. Like, and he's performing. So it to me, it's mostly just like you're assuming that it would have worked out. When if you're going to assume that, you also have to then bear in mind that it could go the other way, because you can't have the high of the high and not have the low of the low in a hypothetical.
Right. And I'm not at all saying that he's not going to be what he was this year, next year. But we're also talking about an Asher Nolting who has done this in this league for 3-4 years at this point, versus a Pat Kavanaugh who even now has only done this one season. And again, I'm not saying he's going to not be this again, but even if you made that decision today, you'd probably still pick Asher Nolting, just because he has, again, done it multiple seasons in a row. Now, the flip side of that is that you could argue, well, Asher's done it, 4 years. He's 4 years closer to retirement than Pat Kavanaugh is, or whatever.
Sure, but he's still young.
Sure.
In my opinion, some people say he's old, but
well, and I think yes, he's still fairly young, but also I think he has a game that I think won't leave him with age. Yep. I compare him a lot to John Grant Jr. Maybe not necessarily that good if you want to nitpick, but he has a similar game in that it's not based on speed and quickness. It's body control and leaning into you and just having kind of slick hands. That one-handed pass he had a couple weeks ago, cross crease. He does play the game similarly to John Grant Jr. in that, if he's 38, 39, 40, I think he can still play more or less the way he plays now. So,
yep.
That also adds to the fact that while, yes, he's still relatively young, I think he also is going to play longer than most people do. I don't know why I put most in quotes. That's not what I meant to do. Anyway, let's stop talking about stupid stuff. How about that? Let's look forward to the quarterfinal matchups in 2 weeks. First up, we have the Water Dogs versus the Whips. We've already talked a little bit about kind of what we would do in terms of the goalies. I'm wondering, I guess, just who you got in this game, because this one really feels like a coin flip to me, because on one hand, I think the Water Dogs are probably the better team, at least on paper, but we are also talking about a Jim Stagnito Whips team that I just feel like you can't ever count them out. We just saw them last year make a run that we weren't expecting all the way to the championship game, even though they were probably in a better position last year than they were this year. But, you just can't ever count them out. So what are you thinking?
It's too early to tell. I don't know. Like, Philly's offense just put up 19 goals. 19 points, I should say. So it's like, if they're producing at a high level and their defense doesn't have to do a ton, I like their chances. But Maryland's been playing real well. And I think Emmett Carroll's just, he's found his rhythm. They're probably going to dominate the faceoff stripe, if I had to guess. Not necessarily like a 75-25, but I would anticipate like a 60-40 split probably. So does that factor in? I don't know. Philly's been both have been up and down, but Philly, for as good as they are on paper, has been way too inconsistent to tell right now, I think.
I don't even think they've been all that inconsistent. They have put up some big point numbers, but also still lost those games. Like, they've lost 4 straight.
Like they're playing well, but they still lose. Or they play poorly and then they win. Like, it's not. I just don't know.
I I don't like the way that they have finished the season, losing 4 straight, basically backing into the playoffs. I don't like. Obviously they have the talent to win the games. If we sit down here heading into the semifinals and they're still alive, you're not going to be too shocked. They have the talent, but they have lost 4 straight. They haven't really looked particularly good. When they do look good on the offensive end, the defense looks atrocious. It doesn't really seem to matter whether they're getting good goalie play or bad goalie play or indifferent goalie play. They just can't do enough. As much as I'd like to say that they'll drop, another 17, 18, 19 points and win, I think this Whips defense is pretty good. I think Emmett Carroll has been very good since they kind of made him the guy for them. And like we have talked about all year, when they let the kids run, it works for them. It works really well for them, to the point where even like you mentioned, even Rob Pennell looked good this past weekend. I think maybe as kind of a tertiary option or something, but we've talked about that all season. That's the blueprint for them to win games. And while we have said that before and then they lost, I'd like to think that they legitimately understand that at this point and will do that. So I think I'm going to ride with the Whips on this. And I hate saying that, but it is what it is, I guess. Let's move on to the Chaos versus Redwoods game. I'm going to let you go first on this one. Who are you taking in this?
Well, I'm not taking the team that loses every time I pick them. That's Carolina.
I was going to say, you might have to be more specific.
Every time I've picked them, they've lost. I mean, like clockwork. So naturally, whoever I pick is going to lose. So, I don't know. Carolina has the defense, but California has the offense. So, I don't know. My heart's saying California, but like matchup wise, I think Carolina makes a little more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think their defense can keep them in it long enough to where your offense only has to do the bare minimum scoring wise, and I think Owen Hiltz will bounce back. I don't know. This might be a game time decision for me.
They did split in the regular season. California won the first game in week 1, and in week 7 in Chicago, Carolina beat them 12-10. So not a ton to go off of there. I
don't know.
I mean, I think the real answer is probably, which Chris Kavanaugh are you going to get? Are you going to get 2 or 3 points out of Chris Kavanaugh, or are you going to get 6 or 7 points out of Chris Kavanaugh? Because I think you get 6 or 7 and the Redwoods win. You get 3 and it's probably going to be Carolina. The other thing too is, I think that was it wasn't the first Owen Hiltz game, but it was one of the earlier Owen Hiltz games. So do they adjust to him now, having played him and seen him on tape for several weeks now? Do they adjust? Do they even have anyone that can really slow them down on that defense? That Redwoods defense is not the best. I think I'd go Carolina. Like you said, by picking them, it means they're not gonna show up. They're gonna lose. But if I just think about it more generally, I'd imagine Blaze has a pretty good game. The defense has a pretty good game. And then between Ross Scott, Jackson Eicher, and Owen Hiltz, I just think that at least one of them is going to be getting free pretty much all day. And then if you can get some more production out of Shane Knobloch, maybe Perk hits a 2 or something, like, I don't know. I think it could really work out. The other thing is the battle between Justin Inacio and TD Erlin was right around 50%. So, you know, if Justin Inacio can be right at 50% or better, then obviously that's going to go a long way too, because it's probably going to be another very close game, and it could be 1 or 2 possessions that swing the game. So I'll go Chaos. Whether or not you go Redwoods, we'll see, I guess.
We'll see. I don't know.
You say it's going to be a game time decision as if you're going to like tweet out, "Hey, this is my game time decision."
I might do that now. I might put out a tweet earlier in the day that's going to be like,
You guys hold him to that. You guys hold him to that.
It's going to say my pick for tonight will be a game time decision. And then right before face off, I'm going to be like, this is who I'm taking.
They will hold you to it, and I will hold you to it. I want to see your game time decision.
Of course, then again, maybe in a week, I'll have some thought and be like, you know what? No, this is stupid. I know who I want. I don't know.
I know. Yeah. The thing is, though, like, it's not like they're going to practice. It's not like, I mean, I guess an injury report could swing it.
Sometimes I just need some clarity, just some time to sit and think. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh.
All right. Next week when we talk about MVP, I'll ask you again. See if you've had that moment of clarity.
All right.
And if not, then we're expecting a game day tweet from you.
All right. I can do that.
All right. All right. We will end the show here. Like I said, next week we'll talk about MVPs and Rookie of the Years and all those things. I'm sure we have some thoughts. I'm sure we have some things to debate. We already had a little bit of a debate.
After a couple of them.
I mean, there are definitely going to be...
The followers know where I stand on a couple of them.
But that might be the debate. We already debated Goalie of the Year a little bit.
There's no debate.
Maybe not Goalie of the Year. I think it was more Rookie of the Year, but...
There's no debate.
I mean... Not from you.
No debate.
You can expect a lot more of this level of interaction next week. All right. We will, like I said, we will get out of here on that. If you enjoyed the show, please give it a like, a follow, a subscribe, a thumbs up, an emoji. But I'm totally blanking. I don't even know what I'm saying right now. Just talking, just chatting, stumbling through my words,
trying to say goodbye to the viewers, but
trying to and failing miserably. There's a reason why I normally write this stuff down. Anyway, all of those things really do help our show grow and help us continue to put out these shows every week. But actually, wait, before we sign off, we got an off weekend this weekend. What you doing?
Oh, I'm shooting a bare knuckle event Saturday.
Interesting.
My second one. So I'm looking forward to it. It should be... Apparently, the main event, whoever she is like a Colorado legend, is what I was told. So I'm assuming there'll be a good crowd, but it was... last time I did it, it was pretty cool. I got like blood on my face at one point. That was not my own.
So cool.
So that part wasn't cool. I was freaking out there for a minute. But I got it cleaned up. It was fine. But yeah, so that'll be cool. But
nice. I got nothing really all that cool. My wife and I got to basically clean our whole house because the following weekend my mom is coming up to New Hampshire for the first time. She's never been up here and hasn't been up here in the 2 years that I've lived up here. So she's coming up here. So we gotta scrub my whole house, but then we're also going to look, we might be moving. So we're going to go look at a couple of houses up near where my wife, not my mom, where my wife works. because we might be moving sometime in the not too distant future. So
nice.
That's pretty much it, though. I'm gonna be this weekend was. I know I don't have to tell you because you've been to several weeks this year, but that split Saturday is such a long day. Such a freaking long day. We got up I think we left the house at about 9:00 and we weren't home until like after midnight, and it's hot and gross.
Yep.
And oh my God. And then we had to get up Sunday morning to go do some stuff. So didn't even get to like sleep in or anything. Oh man, it's exhausting. So anyway, let's get out of here. As always, you guys can find me at I am Neil Barrett on Twitter and Instagram. You can find Brandon at Hoot Sports Media on Twitter and Instagram, as well as the show at Run Out Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Hit us up with any thoughts, messages, questions. Next week, we are going to be doing a mailbag. So definitely send us in any questions that you have. Doesn't even have to be lacrosse related. We'll gladly answer anything that you guys got. But if you guys got some thoughts about the season that was, or some predictions about the future of the playoffs and maybe the league as a whole, please send them in. But with that, we will get out of here. And as always, we'll catch you in the comments.